Welcome back into A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Search Locked On Sports ATL. Of course, follow me on Twitter at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. You can follow Locked On Sports Atlanta at Locked On ATL. Keep up with all the great shows that we have here. Not only is it A to Z, but it's Hitting Hard with John Chuckery, ATL Day Ones with Jarvis Davis and Tanitra Batiste, our Braves postcast with Grant McCauley. Don't forget about Locked On Falcons with Aaron Freeman and Locked On Hawks with Brad Rowland. Speaking of the Hawks, they have a kind of big game tonight against the Miami Heat, kind of to save their season, because if you go in an 0-3 hole in the NBA, guess what? Your playoff lives are over. From the Athletic beat writer covering the Atlanta Hawks, it's my good friend Chris Kirschner here on A to Z. Chris, welcome, brother. Great to talk to you, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, in an 0-2 hole, and a lot of people have said, even yourself, have focused kind of on like what the Hawks haven't done, right? Like it was, shots just weren't falling, or Trey had 10 turnovers and all these other things. And I just look at it from the other perspective, Chris, and I go, Miami is just too good. Like they are objectively better than the Hawks at pretty much everything other than like, I guess, volume scoring, right? Like I give so much credit to what Miami has been able to do in keeping this Hawks team in the 105, 101 range, whatever it may be. I mean, their defense is just stifling and suffocating, and I don't know that the Hawks have an answer.
Yeah, it's definitely a good point. That's something that Trae Young actually touched on yesterday at practice. He called it a chess match between him and Eric Spoelstra. Well, the problem is, Spoelstra is one of the greatest coaches of all time. He had a week to prepare for Trey. They didn't have to play in the play-in tournament. They're the number one seed. And he had a week to scheme for Trey. And what we've seen through two games is, Spoelstra's winning that chess match. In the first game, Miami was switching every single pick and roll and made life extremely difficult for Trey to do what he does best, which is, get in that pick and roll, find a lob threat. Well, the problem is, their better lob threat, Clint Capella's out, so you didn't have that. And there's definitely a drop-off between Clint and Onyeka Okongwu. John Collins is hobbled, so you don't even have that level of lob threat that John is. So in the first game, the amount of switching that Trey saw certainly led to a lot of problems that the Hawks had. They didn't really have many quality looks from the perimeter, the paint. It didn't matter, like where they shot the ball. It was extremely difficult. And then in the last game, Nate McMillan adjusted and had Trey come off the ball way more than he did in game one, but it still was an issue. Miami was getting into passing lanes. Atlanta had 19 turnovers, 10 of them from Trey. I mean, if you're going to be that sloppy as a team, 19 turnovers against the number one seed in the conference, it's just not going to get the job done. And I think it was kind of remarkable that the Hawks were even in that game late. It was a 3-point game. Bogdan Bogdanovic got super hot in that fourth quarter. And the fact that they had 19 turnovers and were still in that game, I think gave the Hawks a little bit of confidence. Weird to say, even with them down 2-0, that is something that McMillan actually touched on at media today, that, they were still in that game. So the fact that they're home, where they've been 20-3 over the last 23 games since MLK Day when they beat Milwaukee at State Farm Arena, they're feeling, okay. Like, they think they can win, but again, I think Miami is just the better team right now.
Yeah. And so, I mean, my thing is this, and look, I've said since game one, I'm worried. Like I just, and part of me wanted to chalk game one up to the travel. They were in 4 cities in 6 days. They played 3 games in 6 days. I get it. They were tired. But even the first half sample set bothered me because Miami was just on a different level. And then it bore itself out in game 2. And I said after game 2, look, I honestly don't give them much chance. Objectively, I feel like a gentleman's sweep is the best that they can hope for. Now, that said, if you want to be a big-time star and a big-time team and a big-time coach and a big-time organization, these are the games you have to show up for. Like, I don't care that the chips are stacked against Trey, and I don't have any doubt about Trey himself, Chris. Like, I think, Trey obviously is a guy that can elevate. There's no doubt about that at this point in his career. We've seen it. But still, I don't know that he's faced a defense at this level And even if you want to say it was Milwaukee last year, like there was so much house money they were playing with. I don't really think anybody really thought anything of it. So I look at the situation, first real must-win game for Trae to sort of, cement, I don't want to say his legacy, but just kind of elevate his playoff stature. Am I overstating this moment for Trae, John Collins, Nate McMillan, and the rest of the Hawks?
No, I don't think so. I think it's also just a different situation than what the Hawks had last season because, like you mentioned, it was house money. Maybe not many people thought they were going to win that Knicks series. I thought it was outrageous that many people thought the Knicks were going to win just because the Hawks are more talented than New York, and that transpired this season. The Knicks definitely played over their heads last season. But for Trae, when you look at just what the roster currently is, again, I mentioned Quinn Capella being out. John Collins is just nowhere near the John that we're used to seeing with both of his injuries to his foot and finger. So if Trae can deliver, his all-time performance, which I think he kind of has to at this point in order for the Hawks to actually have a chance to win this series, I definitely think they can elevate his stature not only in the city of Atlanta, but nationally. If he could beat this defense, obviously they're all keying in on him every single possession. If he can, get that, 30-point, highly efficient, 10, 12 assists, and everybody's involved, and it's Trae that's the one organizing, which he usually is offensively, I certainly think it can raise his level of just how respected he is. Because I know a lot of people in the city think, Trae is disrespected by the media and whatever it is. I mean, the players in the league, just talking with them, I'm traveling to all these arenas, I talk to executives, I talk to other players. Everyone knows Trae is really good.
Right.
But if he can win with the roster with the way it is, I mean, there's just no way anybody can doubt his skill set at this point, just because, again, I do think that as it currently stands with the rosters the way they are, Miami's fully healthy, Atlanta's not. If he can win against this roster with how they're defending him, I just think it could definitely skyrocket his value across the NBA.
All right, Chris, I'm gonna ask you to log out and log back in. Your audio is a little funky, so because I have more that I want to talk to you about real quick in reference to the rest of the Hawks. So while he gets resituated, I do want to talk more about the rest of the complimentary scorers tonight because I think they are the ones that are really going to have to help Trae out. When it comes to Trae Young, we put so much focus on him. We put so much emphasis on what Trae can do, and it's all on his shoulders. But in reality, he's going to have to find a way to get other people involved, and other people are going to have some sort of impact. I mean, I go back to, again, the game against Charlotte when you talk about the Hawks having not only Trae having a big night, but also Trae having a bunch of complimentary scorers behind him. And I think, Chris, I think we're good. We'll try this again here real quick. But to that point, they have got to get other people around Trae going. And I know John Collins is hurt and it's his finger on his shooting hand and everything else, but he got paid a big contract to show up in big moments. I want to give him a little bit of a pass, but on the other hand, I don't, because this is what you're here for, man. Like, I need a 20 and 10 night out of John Collins tonight. And if he's not able to do it, then I would question what he's on the floor for. Because, somebody else, it's got to be more than Trae and one other guy. It's got to be 2 or 3 other guys if they have a shot.
Yeah, I definitely understand. I mean, I wrote a story on John Friday morning on The Athletic about just where he is physically. His knuckle, the ligament in his knuckle on his right ring finger is torn. He had a PRP injection in his foot. He's just, it is what it is at this point. Like, he's out there, and you kind of have to hope that he figures it out. But again, he's just not the level where you can expect a 20 and 10 like we've seen out of John. You have to hope that Bojan Bogdanovic continues shooting the way he is. The Hawks have gotten nothing out of Danilo Gallinari in this series. You talk about big contracts. He's getting over $20 million. They've gotten nothing. And if Gallinari's not making shots, he's a negative because he doesn't defend well. You have to hope that Kevin Huerter makes a lot of threes. Onyeka Okongwu, I think highly of his potential, but he's been a total non-factor for the Hawks in the series. I think he has 5 points and 11 rebounds in 40 minutes. just not making the impact that you would hope. DeLon Wright is just he's a reserve. I think he does good things when he's on the floor, especially defensively, but he's not going to be your 20-point scorer that you might be looking for. So again, like I said, the roster is what it is right now. You kind of have to hope that all these guys play over their heads. So I think I'm frozen.
No, you're still good. And to that point, I don't want to make too many grand gestures about, where this team is headed. But if you kind of get swept or get gentlemen swept out of this, objectively, and I talked about this too, like during the play-in, if they got knocked out of the play-in tournament, what's the future of this team? Because objectively right now, like, you are at best the fifth best team in the East, right? I mean, behind Philly, Milwaukee, Boston, Miami, like, you could make an argument you could be better than Toronto. I mean, certainly Cleveland. I think that's their. It's Brooklyn. If you're even forgetting about Brooklyn, I mean, for crying out loud, like, it's tough to even say that they are any closer to a championship. And if they get swept, is it too early to say they need to make some sort of major changes to make this team better? Because all of a sudden, the East is the wrong conference to be in.
That's something that Trey has talked about really all season long, is the fact that they're kind of, the Eastern Conference has gotten way better. It's better than the Western Conference. And the Hawks were ninth in the East this season. They needed 2 wins in the play-in tournament to advance to get the 8th seed. So for the Hawks, if they do get swept, or if it's, if they're over in 5 games, Travis Schlenk, the general manager, has to look at this roster and be like, okay, is this core good enough to win a championship? And in my opinion, I don't think it is. You kind of have to hope for a lot of internal growth to get to that level where you're on Miami's level, or Milwaukee, or Philly, or Brooklyn. Even Brooklyn is a 7th seed. So with where the Hawks stand right now, I don't think this team is a championship contender. And you just can't run it back again with this roster.
Right.
You just can't. If they get swept, or if it's 5 games, you can't bring everybody back. You have to make changes. Tony Ressler, Travis Schlenk, they both said that the goal is to win titles. And with the roster the way it is, I don't think you're very close to winning a title. You need a second star. You need better defenders. You need guys who can create and get their own shot. You don't really have a lot of these guys on this roster. So when you look at it that way, I think that even if this goes 6 games or 7 games and they lose, like, you still need, significant changes to get on that level where you are one of the better teams in the conference.
Chris Kirschner of The Athletic, beat writer covering the Atlanta Hawks. Great to talk to you as always, brother. Enjoy the game tonight. Try to, get a Hawks victory for us, but I certainly appreciate you joining me, brother.
Thanks a lot.
All right. We will take a time out, come back, wrap things up here on this Friday. Get you set for the weekend right here on A to Z on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Free on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Search Locked On Sports Atlanta.